It's nice to see some familiar faces. For those of you, hi Paul. How's lunch?
Shout out. Oh, so good, Trish.
Trish is very hungry. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jess Pearson. I'm on the sales side. I work on the automotive account. Jeffrey and I actually met at a volunteer event at Westminster Avenue Elementary School. We were both on a career day panel. And he and I have been in touch the last couple months. And obviously he is a fan of Google. And the second he walked in, I gave him a tour. He saw the screening room and said, oh my gosh, can I bring my film in? And so he gave me the short. It was very humble. It's actually an Oscar-nominated short from this past Oscar award season. So we're pretty excited to have you here, Jeffrey. And Nora is his wife next to him. Nora is very involved in the community garden project at Westminster Avenue School. So thank you both for having us, or coming here, having you.
Hi. They want to put you in on camera.
I guess for posterity, my first question is, where did you find this guy? I also really liked the shot at the end where you have him start digging his second magnum opus and you just zoom out. And how far was the camera from that? And did you have to do a couple tries to get that right?
The first question about where did I find him, we have a house in New Mexico, and I met in a small town called Dixon, and I met Ra when we first started going to this house. And I met Shell and Liz first. Nora and I were at the Pancake Breakfast, which was a fundraiser for the volunteer fire department, that kind of town. And met Shell and Liz, and they said, we're having a cave dug on our property. Are you interested in seeing it? So that's an invitation you don't turn down. And it took me, after seeing that cave, that shot in the movie where they come around the corner is the experience that we had first seeing that cave, which was that, oh my God, what is this? Never seen anything like it. I knew it was something that was film-worthy, but it took me many years to figure out a way into the story of it. So I actually didn't start the film till almost 10 years after I met him. So all of the creation of Liz and Shell's caves that you see in this is actually, he's working on another cave, but we used the footage for it. As for the last shot, I had that shot in mind for a very long time, not knowing that I was going to end the film with it, but I liked the idea of man in landscape, and it really worked well for the theme of the film. And I tried to shoot it with a balloon, a GoPro on a balloon. That was a total disaster. I tried to shoot it with a mini helicopter from a crew that I found locally, and the crew members were all stoned, and we did a day of shooting, and we got not a single shot in the entire day. So I had the one shot of him starting. I was so thrilled to be there on the day that he was actually starting a cave, because all those years had passed and I was never in New Mexico when he started a project. And I was there on the day, and I had a shot. It was on a tripod, and he started the cave. And originally, my first cut, I ended the film with that shot. And then I was looking at it one day and I thought, oh, wait a second. Everything around him is not moving. And I sent a cameraman back to that spot. It was exactly 2 years later to the month. And I said, at 3:30, because I had the metadata from the shot. So I said, at 3:30 in the afternoon, stand on the hill opposite where we were, point the camera, your still camera, at the cave opening, and do 10 shots of different sizes, zooming backwards without changing the pan or the tilt. Oh. And a compositor put the motion frame inside of the still frames and pulled back. So it's all done in post.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Really cool.
So I know when we met, you and I were on the panel, and you had mentioned that you direct commercials, and I think you work with a lot of automotive clients. Is this your first film that you directed? And it almost seems like this became your passion project as well. So not a question, but just more of a comment.
Yes. This is my first film, yes. Although I've done a lot of documentaries in the context of fundraising films for philanthropic organizations and nonprofits. So I was pretty familiar with the form of it. No more questions? Oh.
What are you working on now?
I'm actually gone back to my day job of making money. So I'm shooting commercials. The one thing that I discovered about making documentaries is that it is the opposite of income producing. So, especially for something like this, I mean, I didn't have any backers or anything. I just financed the whole thing myself. And I mean, that was really one of the reasons that it took me so long to get started on it, because I knew that it was something I was going to just have to do on my own, because I didn't even know what film I was making while I was making it. And when the digital revolution caught up to a place where I was actually the owner of the Canon 5D that this film was shot with, then it was like, okay, the bar to entry is so low that I can do this thing. And even if it comes to nothing, I'll spend a few $1,000s, it won't be that bad. But now I'm back to making a little money and, you know, entertaining a couple of documentary projects. Julie?
Yes. Do the people that own the caves spend a lot of time staying in the caves, or do they rent them out on Airbnb or anything like that?
You know, I feel like any of them could, and I think they do really well. But you know, part of what drew me to the subject matter, besides Ra and his art, was the peculiar nature of the people in this part of the world. You know, I think it's you know Treme, that HBO series. You could only find those people in New Orleans. Well, I think you could only find these people here in northern New Mexico. They're all a peculiar kind of oddity. The only difference being that they're all transplants. None of them were born there. So the people were drawn to this place. But it does draw a certain like mind. And that like mind has a kind of disdain for not disdain, but they're private. So none of them really want to invite the public through any means at all. It's actually really hard to see any of his caves because of that. Shell and Liz use their cave as a guest house, and they're very generous about it. So like friends of friends stay there. The last time I was there 2 weeks ago, we were there 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we walked into the cave and there was a family there and a Buddhist monk in full robes sitting on one of the stoops there. And I was like, wow, that looks perfect. This is made for you. You know? And the other people use them as places to meditate, and some people have like music parties in them. So nobody lives in any of them as far as I know. Shell and Liz's cave, by the way, it has plumbing and electricity.
Hi there.
Hi.
It seems from the documentary that for the people closest to Ra, that it was really difficult over the course of the years to like emotionally support him, especially his wife. In the time that you worked with Ra to make this film, what was your overall impression of him as a person?
He's very open, and that was really helpful, of course, as a filmmaker, that he was so willing to talk about himself and not necessarily in positive, and paint himself in a positive light all the time. Definitely what you see is what you get. There is no subterfuge there. He is that guy. And he's an incredibly kind, incredibly generous person, and was really generous to us. I mean, down to the smallest thing where we had to haul lots of equipment up mountainsides many times, and he's the strongest guy amongst us by far, even though he was the oldest. And he would just, pick up the heaviest thing and haul it up the hill every time. The business with his wife is, it's complicated. It was complicated, I thought. Somebody else's relationship, it's like, you kind of wonder, sometimes when I watch the film, I think, well, why did you get involved with this guy at all? But because there's more to it. There's more to it. And actually, right after the film was finished and was showing and was getting popular, they separated. And they were talking about getting a divorce. And they had, Ra called me and said, this is not your fault. And, this really was coming before this. And, she's gotten a lawyer and we're getting divorced, and then 2 weeks later they were back together. So that's how that's going, you know. Right.
So you mentioned the plumbing and the electricity, and I noticed other things like nice wood floors and windows in some of those caves. Does Raw do all that, or does that get contracted out, or how does that happen?
He prepared the walls for the plumbing and the electricity to be put in by grooving out the pathway, and there were natural, grains in the sandstone that he could follow. But other people did all of the woodwork and the electrical and the plumbing. Yeah, there's a beautiful door on that cave, which is just stunning. But somebody else created that. And so a lot of really talented artisans in that part of the world, a concentration of them around Dixon. So, Nora.
I just think it's worth mentioning the Jeff Bezos connection then, because that will have some influence when the authorities come in. I think it's an interesting story.
Yeah, that what Nora's talking about is that the Jeff Bezos runs this conference every year called Campfire, and it is so under the radar that you can hardly find it on the internet at all, which I didn't think there was anything that you couldn't find but through Google. But it's a kind of a TED conference for culture, and they invite painters, writers, artists, filmmakers. And the organizers saw this film and contacted Ra and invited him. And he was, really well received there. He did a presentation. They showed 15 minutes of the film. And Jeff Bezos was there, and he kind of made a personal connection with Bezos. So, and with a lot of other sort of powerful people. So at some point, who knows, that may be a force that he draws upon when he is making his case. Is that what you meant? Okay. Thank you guys for coming. Do you have a question? Oh, wow.
We saw about the visual images. You talked about various helicopter tries or whatever, but could you describe your audio process throughout and what you had in your mind for the overall audio feeling of the project? Or
Absolutely haphazard. I mean, I was running sound, and I've never run sound, so that should give you an idea of how well that was planned. But there's these little digital audio recorders now that I borrowed from my brother-in-law, and then I borrowed microphones from friends and stuff, because I don't actually own any audio gear. And then sometimes we used a shotgun on the camera itself. Sometimes we would do both. Sometimes we would end up with no sound because I forgot to turn the microphone on. I have a couple of scenes like that. Actually, the very first interview that I did on the very first day, I forgot to start the audio recorder, so we had to start over. I was shocked that the sound came out so well. I couldn't figure out why. Yeah, it sounds really good, and I violated every single rule. I didn't know how to set levels or anything, so I don't know. It scares me to think well, that's probably, I shouldn't get any confidence from that at all, because it'll never happen that way again. So yeah, but the guy who did the music, I thought, did a really nice job, and I was very much hoping that he would create a soundtrack that you could listen to in your car if you weren't watching the movie, and I think he did something very close to that. So, all right, I think we're done. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for coming in.